Cool. Welcome, everybody. As people are trickling into the room, welcome to our tribal-specific Transformative Climate Communities Round 5 application workshop. We'll give it a couple more minutes for folks to continue to enter the virtual space here on Zoom. So welcome one and all. While we do that, can we just do a quick, just want to introduce TCC and DOC staff that are going to be on this call, including our application TA providers. If while folks are trickling in, y'all just want to come on camera and say a quick hello and where you're from. So I'll start. My name is Jerry Rivero. I'm the Senior Programs Analyst here at TCC. And I'll toss it to Rebecca Jacobson, who's next on my screen.
Hi, everyone. Thank you all for coming. My name is Rebecca Jacobson. I'm a grant manager with the Department of Conservation. And I'll pass it over to Jess.
Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Jess. I am a program associate for TCC. I help with technical assistance, communications, and outreach. And then I'll pass it to Jennifer.
Sorry, I'm still on mute. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jennifer. Can you all hear me?
We can, Jennifer.
Okay,
we can.
Sorry, it keeps telling me I'm muted. Good to have you all here in this room. Thank you for joining us. My name is Jennifer. I'm a program analyst with the TCC team on the Strategic Growth Council side of the team. Good to have you here. I will pass it to Julia.
Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Julia, and I am a grant manager with the Department of Conservation. Yeah, I'm very excited to be here today and get to talk with you all. Let's see, I think Neil is left.
Sure. Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Neil. I'm a grant manager with the Department of Conservation on the TCC program. I'm all the way down in Los Angeles, so I work on a lot of Southern California grantees, and I'm excited to talk to all of you today. And I think we also have Jacob here. Jacob, would you like to say?
I work for the Department of Conservation on the TCC program, and pleasure to be with you all this morning. Thank you.
Great. Folks are trickling in. We're just giving quick introductions of staff, TCC staff, and our application TA providers who are also on this call. So Josh, toss it to you, and then Clancy.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Josh Meyer with CivicWell, part of the technical assistance team that will be helping you out if you're looking to apply. And the team is led by Estelano Advisors. And I'll pass to Clancy.
Hey y'all, I'm Clancy Taylor with the California Coalition for Rural Housing, up here based on Miwok and Nisenan land. And yeah, one of the application TA providers focusing on rural housing and tribal communities. So happy to be here. And Jerry, I'll pass it back to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Clancy. Thanks everybody on team. Feeling that energy from the team. And hopefully we're connecting with folks as they're trickling in, seeing folks are still coming in. So this is awesome. So yeah, welcome again. We'll be going through a quick walkthrough of TCC, the application component, and then towards the end, we'll talk a little bit more about some of the round 4 applicants in this most recent round. Next slide, please. Looks like we have, sorry, Jess, this is your slide.
Yeah, no worry. Yeah, I think before we wanted to get started, I just want to frame of who's in the room. I pulled these from the registration questions. So in regards to what grant type people are thinking about applying for, a lot of folks are unsure, and that's totally okay. I'm hoping that after this presentation, you can gain more clarity about the differences between the grants and which one would be best for your community needs. When asked what's your familiarity with the TCC application process, many folks are unfamiliar or somewhat familiar. So again, hoping this workshop can provide clarity. And this workshop is meant for California Native American tribes. So most, if not all, folks are from California Native American tribes and or represent those communities. And I'll pass it to Jerry.
Cool, fantastic. Thanks, Jess. So yeah, before we begin, we'll go over some housekeeping items. Just a reminder, this session is being recorded. It will be posted via the TCC website once made available. I think we will communicate with folks via email once it's available. Also, feel free to use the chat. Seeing that folks are introducing themselves in the chat, that's awesome. Thanks, Jacob Byrne, for getting that started. Feel free to use the meeting chat if you're having tech issues. We have colleagues monitoring the chat, so we'll be able to help with any technical issues that you may be having. Also, we encourage you that during this presentation, if questions do come up, please feel free to drop the questions in the chat, or you can wait until afterwards. We will again be monitoring the chat, and folks, again, we have staff answering these questions as timely and as quickly as possible. We will be adding you, so we will say at I'm looking at Camille. We'll say at Camille, and here's the response to your question. So just be on the lookout for that. And then with that, yeah, let's go into the contents and then today's agenda. So we will go quickly over a TCC program overview. We will talk about the goals and principles of the program, as well as important deadlines for the application process. As we mentioned earlier, we have our TA team, who are the application TA providers on this call, who will present an overview of the support provided for round 5 applicants. And then we also will have an opportunity to hear towards the end of the session from our recently awarded planning grantees from round 4, all from tribal communities. We'll be able to hopefully share some of their experiences during the application process, as well as answer any kind of direct questions that you may have to them. We have found that folks find it super helpful to have folks that have gone through the process kind of share their stories and kind of tell you the best practices out there. So hopefully that's a useful tool for you all. Okay, cool. Next slide, please. So we're going to go over the program overview and the goals of TCC. But before we do, we'll give a brief background and over of TCC, the Transformative Climate Communities program, as it sits under the California Strategic Growth Council. So next slide. The California Strategic Growth Council is a cabinet level committee tasked with coordinating state agency activities aimed at supporting the planning and development of sustainable communities across the state. The mission of the council is to coordinate and work collaboratively with public agencies, communities, and stakeholders to achieve sustainability, equity, economic prosperity, and quality of life for all Californians. Furthermore, the California Strategic Growth Council is committed to achieving racial equity in which all people of California can live in healthy, thriving, and resilient communities regardless of race. So with that said, the Transformative Climate Communities, which we will speak of, is a program under the Strategic Growth Council. So TCC, Transformative Climate Communities, was created through legislation to fund community-led climate resilient development and infrastructure plans that provide multiple benefits. The program vision for transformation is centered on a place-based approach with a focus on funding neighborhood plans in the most disadvantaged communities in the state. We will also note here that the Strategic Growth Council recognizes the term disadvantaged often overlooks the many assets and existing efforts in communities and uses the term from the California Environmental Protection Agency that defines disadvantaged communities as census tracts with high pollution and socioeconomic burden. Next slide, please. So this Strategic Growth Council again administers TCC in partnership with the California Department of Conservation. TCC funds community-driven proposals and is structured to provide existing residents and stakeholders with the tools and resources to drive change in their communities. TCC makes significant investments to support the deployment of multiple integrated climate strategies and projects carried out through strong partnerships at the local level and with the state. To date, the program has invested over $230 million in 326 million, sorry, in 30 communities and has reduced 261,000 metric tons of greenhouse gases to date. Implementation grants in the past have ranged between 10 and 66.5 million. And then planning grants, which we'll talk to a little bit more in detail in the next slide, have ranged between 100 and 200,000, 300,000 in the past. Again, 100 to 300,000 in past awards. So what's available for round 5? So historically, TCC has provided implementation and planning grants. And we've administered those along with DOC colleagues and staff. For this round, we are excited to announce the project development grants, as you see here in this chart. A quick note that we were asked and have been asked before is whether you have to do these in order, if you have to follow any kind of order to apply to these. And no, you do not. You can certainly apply for an implementation grant if you're ready for it, or a project development grant. So there's no order to these. A little highlight on these. So planning grants, sorry, we'll start with them. For this round, there are 3 awards of up to $300,000 each. And then these address direct planning issues, preparing for future funding opportunities, and these carry a 2-year grant term. And then again, the new grant awards available this year are project development grants, and those are multiple awards of up to $5 billion each. And these are meant to bridge projects that are not shovel ready. And then they also fund pre-development activities. We'll give you a better example of these in the next couple slides. And then these also have a 2-year grant term. And then for round 5, we have 3 awards for implementation grants, up to 3 awards for $29.5 up to $29.5 million each. And again, implementation grants provide a larger holistic approach that include multiple coordinated projects aimed at reducing, again, greenhouse gas emissions and achieving community benefits. These are typically a 5-year project completion period, followed by 1 year of performance and outcome evaluation. So this next slide we have talks to some examples of what these look like. Won't go too much into detail on these, but I will highlight the project development, the difference between project development and planning grants. So the project development grant is meant to be meant to fill the gap for folks that are maybe not right at the stage to apply for an implementation grant, but like beyond the planning. So it's right in that middle stage. So yeah, this provides funding for, as we see here, feasibility studies, basic environmental infrastructure, pre-development, community engagement, and then capacity building, such as funding new and critical positions in this work. We will have more examples of this, of planning and implementation grants, and we have these on our website, but just wanted to point that project development grants out for folks because it's new for this round. Great. This next slide we have will show the current TCC planning grants to date, and we may be missing a slide here, but that's okay. We'll figure it out. So these are all planning grants that we have up to round 4, as you can see. So you can see it's pretty spread out across the state. As you can see in round 4, it's a little hard to tell in the light purple color. We awarded, for the first time, we expanded to rural and tribal communities, and we have the Karuk tribe up north, Hoopa Valley tribe, the Wyatt tribe, Chicken Ranch Rancheria tribes, all represented in this round 4, this past round. So we're really excited to hear and see that folks are applying and reaching out to technical assistance and getting this work done. So yeah, hopefully we can see this map expand even further in the coming rounds. So I think we have another map, but yeah, we'll just go to program and principles, and here I'll toss it to my colleague at the DOC, Rebecca, who can walk us through these next slides. Rebecca.
Thanks, Jerry. I'm going to turn off my camera while I'm presenting, so don't have any internet problems, which can happen. So thank you all for being here. I just want to preface my part of the presentation with you'll be getting a lot of very detailed information today because TCC can be a very complicated program. Our application itself can be a little bit daunting, but we're going to do our best to orient you to the requirements and resources that we have available, which is a lot. But before we do that, I want to pull it back a bit and talk about this program and what it's really about. Most of what I'll be talking about today is specific to implementation grants, but a lot of the visioning and core concepts are shared by the planning grants and project development grants as well. And then later in the presentation, we'll discuss more specifically the project development and planning grants. So next slide. Thanks. So now that we've been introduced to the legislation and the program overview of TCC, I'll talk more about the implementation of these grants. The program focuses on bringing together multiple community partnerships and projects in order to reach the goal of sustainable investment and transformative planning. And to accomplish these goals, the first step is to create or establish a community vision and collaborative structures involving residents, leaders, and community-based organizations. Fundamentally, TCC is about people, projects, and is place-based. And we're asking you to come together and share with us your model for what you need in your community. Strategies, thresholds, and requirements all follow from this principle. So prior to and during the application process, leads and co-applicants will want to bring together and collaborate with residents, community leaders, and community-based organizations or local government agencies in order to start the discussion about a community vision of transformation and the community's wants and needs in order to become more sustainable and resilient to climate change. This vision will be the guide to inform the rest of the program and the grant and how projects are selected and how the work is conducted through the life of the grant. So at the same time, these collaborative structures will become more formalized and the relationships developed through the initial visioning process will start to develop collaborative stakeholder structures that are more formalized. So for example, you'll be entering into agreements with different stakeholders for decision-making processes, as well as processes to troubleshoot any issues during the grant implementation process if awarded. A strong collaborative stakeholder structure will be the guiding entity to inform decision-making processes throughout the grant, uniting different stakeholders and build upon the guiding vision and principles of the grant. And then the next, if you do a picture, yeah. So this is a photo of round 3 implementation grant in Oakland, showing some of the team that created the vision and who make up the collaborative stakeholder structure for their grant. Once this vision and collaborative structure are created, the next step will be identifying projects that you will be completing during implementation of the grant, which is on the next slide. Thank you. So in order to provide flexibility, TCC offers a menu of options on this slide for projects under different strategies to meet the specific needs of your community. There are a wide range of project types that are grouped under strategies, which are shown here. Each of these strategies have projects you can select with fundable elements under the grant. So for example, if your community has expressed a desire for increased access to fresh local grown foods during the visioning process, this will fall under the health and well-being project, where you can find our strategy, where you can find fundable projects such as the community gardens, urban agricultural projects, or alternative food distribution mechanisms, which are all under the health and well-being strategy. And each of the strategies on the screen is similarly structured and bound in our guidelines, along with a lot of other information in those guidelines. So applicants do not need to include projects from every strategy, but you'll select which strategies fit best for your communities based off of your vision that you put together. And these will be the projects that you'll be implementing in the TCC grants. And we encourage you to be very creative and think outside the box like during this process. There's a wide range of project types and strategies in the program, and each has their own requirements, but they're also flexible. So if you have a vision and a strategy, our staff and TA partners are here to work with you and try to make it work. So we want to encourage creativity. Thank you. So here are some additional examples of project strategies and types, like community microgrids, transit access and active transportation, and health, equity, and well-being, and some examples shown here. So initial consultations that we've conducted indicated that several TCC-funded project types are of interest to tribal communities, including the new microgrid strategy, active transportation, transit, and parks. And additional consultations are needed to understand tribal community needs around climate resilient infrastructure. Next, thank you. In addition to the TCC program framework, the following program policy priorities will be evaluated during the application process, shown here: access to basic infrastructure, regional services, and job centers. So applicants must demonstrate that the TCC investment will provide long-term benefits to the community and that residents in the proposed TCC project area have existing access or have developed plans and secured support or funding to implement basic environmental infrastructure, which includes water supply, wastewater services, with long-term operations and maintenance plans in compliance with state water board standards, as well as transit connectivity to regional service hubs and major job centers through affordable clean transportation projects. We recognize that the lack of this infrastructure sometimes is an existing barrier in many communities. TCC staff and TA providers will work with potential applicants during this pre-proposal phase to help make connections to other funding programs or resources that may help you meet these minimum requirements. And applicants can request up to 10% of requested funds to support projects connecting residents to this basic environmental infrastructure, including water, wastewater, waste disposal, and pollution, as well as pollution control infrastructure. So now I'm going to talk about our 6 transformative elements that must be included in each implementation grant proposal to further the transformative potential of the investment and ensure direct and meaningful benefits to existing residents and stakeholders. So first, we have community engagement, and community engagement is really should be stitched into every project throughout the whole grant term. And so this will ensure that community members benefit from projects and the investments in the planning area. Community engagement during the application phase will continue into the implementation phase, which should foster lasting relationships between residents and decision makers in your community to make sure that these investments are sustained over the long term. The program also requires that there is an effort to ensure that displacement of residents does not occur as a result of project activities. And it's also required that every implementation grant has a workforce development component, which can often be stitched within each of the project types. So hopefully residents in the neighborhood can gain marketable skills, participate in some of the projects that your community has selected, and helps build some careers as well. And then next we have the other 3 transformative elements. Thank you. So climate adaptation and resilience are required to be integrated throughout each project and plan. And then we require long-term indicator tracking, which allows the state to continually assess program outcomes and be able to report on successes. Typically that is done by a third-party evaluation provider. In some grants, this has been an educational institution like universities. And this will help us monitor successes of the grant and for us to be able to improve the TCC program over time. And then lastly, we have the leverage requirement, which boosts the catalytic potential of the TCC investment to sustain community revitalization and equitable development beyond the grant term. 50% of the total TCC award must be matched by leverage funds, and past grantees have been able to amplify the TCC investment with other projects during the grant and beyond through leverage funding. And next, I'll talk a bit more specifically about leverage funding requirements. So they may come from a variety of sources, such as federal, state, local, public, private, or nonprofit entities. In terms of implementation grants, applicants must ensure that secured leverage funding, including a commitment to the project area and timeline for funding. The funding must be integrated into the project and strategies and incorporated into the community vision. And please note that planning grants do not require leverage funding and are oftentimes used to pursue additional leverage funding. For example, a planning grant could be used to conduct community workshops and go through the visioning process and identify potential community projects. And then that work could then be used to apply for a TCC implementation grant or other grant sources. So these are some key features that should be integrated and part of each element of the application. The application should be place-based and accessible to residents of your community who are coming together to shape elements of the application and telling you what their vision for transformation looks like. Bringing so many different groups together often allows you to create an integrated suite of projects that help build each other up and share connections and resources. Another way that the integration occurs is through these catalytic partnerships that are achieved through bringing people together, funding activities together, and sharing those resources. And finally, we see that these TCC investments are catalytic in the community. So we often see that as a result of their involvement with TCC, organizations are often able to build their capacity, reach out for additional grant funds from other sources, and really multiply the effect of these grant funds within communities. And I want to make sure that we keep this vision in mind when we go over the details of the application process. And that's all from me. So I'll pass it back to Jess. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. I really appreciate that. Yeah, so at this point, we're hoping that you all have an understanding of TCC and what we're looking for in proposals and start brainstorming about what strategies you all want to pursue, as well as what grant type is the best fit for your community. So in this next section, we will describe the eligibility requirements for applicants and the project or planning areas, and then walk through the key application components and requirements and provide an overview of the application timeline as well as technical assistance opportunities. So who is eligible to apply? So applicants must include a minimum of 2 co-applicants for all grant types, including a public agency, which includes tribal governments, departments, and duly constituted tribal entities, such as tribally designated housing authorities or utility districts. California Native American tribes under the California Native American Heritage Commission are eligible, and non-recognized tribes can still apply as tribally chartered or 501c3 organizations. As described before, a core component of the program is the collaborative stakeholder structure. So a range of entities are available, but no single entity on their own will be competitive. Eligible applicants include, but are not limited to, the ones on this slide. And the lead applicant must be the one that demonstrates sufficient financial and administrative capacity to administer the grant. And so these eligible applicant types are, usually those that are rooted in their community and understand the community needs. As discussed before, TCC is a place-based program with investments concentrated in a single neighborhood or community. So for tribal applicants in an incorporated area, they must define a project area that is contiguous and covers up to 5 square miles for implementation grants. For tribes in an unincorporated rural area, as defined by our guidelines, your project area can be up to 10 square miles. And this is only for implementation grants. For planning and project development grants, there is no project area or no maximum project area. At least 51% of the area must be within the census tracts amongst the top 25% disadvantaged per the Cal Enviro screen, or be located within federally recognized tribal boundaries, which many of y'all do have fit that requirement. And the remaining 49% of the project area must meet those same requirements or be a low income community as defined by Assembly Bill 1550. And I will pass it on to Jerry, who will talk about the mapping tool and how we use that for the application.
Great, thank you, Jess. I'll be brief on these slides. Here we have a slide that shows a little bit of background on the TCC mapping tool. This is available on the website, and I will drop this in the chat in a little bit, but we'll let folks know that this basically introduces the mapping tool, what layers were used. In round 4, beginning in round 4, we expanded. You can see here, beginning in this image, the numbers 2 and number 3 show the traditional layers of the Cal Enviro screen tool that we were using to identify TCC communities. In the expansion, we included California hard to count index, which is also hard to say, and then California tribal land layers as part of the mapping tool. So you'll be able to use that as a resource. We also, on the website, just plugging besides the story map, we have a 13-minute video tutorial posted on the website, which walks you through how to use the tool. And again, just noting that, we are also recognizing federally recognized tribal territories as eligible in this map. So yeah, we can go on to the next slide, if possible. The next slide speaks specifically to, just wanted to remind folks of the round updates for this round, key updates. So for this project development grant that we're highlighting, the tribes are prioritized for the project development grant funding. We've expanded the flexibility around modifications to certain requirements on a case-by-case basis. This includes public agency support resolutions, collaborative stakeholder structure agreements, project area eligibility, application materials, indirect cost rates, displacement avoidance plan requirements. And then as far as GHG scoring changes for this round, tribes will be evaluated separately from urban communities for half of the 20 GHG emission points on the scoring, which Jess will talk to in a sec. And then as far as eligible project costs, for round 5, we will allow tribal applicants to construct on natural and working lands if no alternatives are available. Cool. So the next slide is just a reminder of, again, the slide we showed earlier in the presentation, just to remind folks of the available grants for this round, again, planning, project development, and implementation grants. And then the following slide shows really kind of the makeup of what these applications look like and their components in the application process. You can see we kind of put them in order from most complex to least complex in their components. The implementation grants, as they are more holistic in nature, have more requirements, and then move down to project development and then planning grants in these components. Cool. Next, we'll talk to the TCC policy priorities. The program also offers policy priorities that impact eligibility and evaluation. Some of them are required, and then some offer incentive points. As mentioned earlier, applicants must demonstrate that residents in the proposed TCC project area have existing access or develop plans for basic water supply and wastewater services, as well as transit connectivity to regional service hubs and major job centers through affordable, clean transportation projects. TA providers can support applicants in meeting these requirements through their proposed projects. Applicants must also demonstrate that TCC proposals are consistent with all relevant land use plans, including climate action plans, zoning, building density requirements, design guidelines, and applicable goals and policies and programs. This is to be demonstrated by a submittal of a letter from a local jurisdiction's planning department or public works department. Applicants from cities with high speed rail stations along the initial Silicon Valley to Central Valley line must include the TCC project area, multimodal connectivity to high speed rail, and if there's any proposed affordable housing and mixed income housing, its connectivity and accessibility to high speed rail station area. There are 2 additional policy incentives for pro-housing and air pollution reduction mitigation, which can earn applicants an additional 5 points in the application. TCC will provide incentives to applicants that have implemented or proposed actions to reduce localized point sources of pollution in their TCC project areas and jurisdictions. And then TCC is required by legislation to provide incentive points to applicants in jurisdictions that receive the Department of Housing and Community Development's pro-housing designation, which incentivizes policies that create sustainable housing and then reduce vehicle miles traveled. So any jurisdiction can earn these points. The pro-housing policy and incentive will not apply to applications located in federally recognized tribal boundaries, and the TCC program will provide maximum points in this category for applicants from tribal communities. Additionally, there are example policies for both incentives listed in the guidelines appendices, where applicants can look further into further detail on these points. Cool. With all that info, I'll toss it over to Jess for some scoring criteria, I believe.
Thank you. So each application will be evaluated based on its vision and objectives, demonstrated capacity, and transformative elements. So we're looking for a few things. So does the proposal align with TCC objectives? Does it comprehensively describe how it aligns with community needs? How does it embed transformative elements? And does the applicant have the capacity to implement the proposal within the designated time and within budget? And then among many other questions and criteria. For the project development grant, as we mentioned before, tribal applicants are prioritized for this grant, in addition to disadvantaged unincorporated applicants, previous implementation grant applicants, and previous planning grant grantees, with disadvantaged unincorporated communities applicants having the most priority. And the application thresholds and full scoring criteria are listed in the round 5 guidelines. Now I will go over the TCC application timeline. So as you all can see, we already released the draft guidelines at the end of last year, and they were adopted in February by the Strategic Growth Council. And then on March 8th is when we released the application and notice of funding availability. And that is when the application cycle started. Starting on March 14th and occurring every Tuesday, 2 to 4 p.m., TCC is offering office hours. And I will be sending a follow-up email with more information on this, but you can sign up for a 15-minute appointment or attend drop-in hours. Yesterday and today, we are having audience-specific online application workshops. And then on March 31st is the first big deadline, which is the application initiation form due for implementation grant applicants. So the application initiation form is designed to collect interest and contact information needed for the application submission folders, and then also connect eligible applicants to technical assistance providers. And it is required for all applicants. All implementation grant applicants are required to receive free third-party technical assistance, which in the next section, they will talk about what they can provide. And then for tribal applicants, third-party technical assistance will also be provided to project development and planning grant applicants to support support our efforts to expand access to those communities. And the deadline for that form is July 3rd. And then a little bit out of order, but on the May 1st is also the pre-proposal submission deadline for implementation grant applicants. This will give the TA providers and SGC the chance to assess whether applicants are on track to meet the threshold requirements and if they should continue, and identify areas where additional support is needed. And the pre-proposal will not influence the application evaluation. And then the final application submission deadline is August 1st, 2023, and round 5 TCC awards will be adopted by the council on December 2023. Again, the application initiation form is due or is required for all applicants, and it does not mean that you have to apply. It is just to get the application started. So it is not a commitment in any way. And then I'll pass it on to Clancy and Josh, who will talk about the technical assistance services they can provide.
Hello, good morning, everyone. And we can just move right to the next slide. Thank you very much. Okay, so I'm Josh Meyer with CivicWell, and we're a nonprofit. We'll describe all the TA providers in a few moments, but we are part of a team that's led by Estelano Advisors. I have also with me Clancy Taylor with California Coalition for Rural Housing. So I'll be presenting these slides, this information, and I welcome Clancy to jump in anywhere that you need to, in case I miss something or have something to add, just hop on in. Great. So, okay. So in general, as mentioned, for anyone that's applying for an implementation grant, they are required to have the technical assistance and have to apply by March 31st. And that's just implementation grants only. There are a lot of ways that we can assist you. You can see the list there. I won't go through them all, but helping you just basically get a feel for the guidelines and understand a little bit what you're proposing, and provide assistance. We don't actually write grant narrative or anything of that nature, but what we certainly can do is help you outline and scope and think about what you want to write, and also review narrative responses as well, and make suggestions for improvements. Okay, next slide, please. Okay. Now we can also provide assistance for planning and project development grant applicants, and this is available to all tribes and tribal governments and tribal communities. So we can still provide a lot of the same kinds of assistance that's mentioned above, but again, kind of looking at what are the projects you're proposing, providing a sounding board for you to see with scoping and thinking about cohesiveness and narrative guidance from review. Partnership development questions, for example, tribes may be thinking about connecting with federal, regional, or local jurisdictions, particularly if their land cross into multiple jurisdictions. And we can talk with you about that, and documenting commitments and approvals for that kind of thing as well. And then certainly we can help with looking at the budgets and work scope development. We do ask for the initiation form for you to fill it out by July 3rd, 2023, but don't waste the last minute. The earlier the better. It's not a heavy lift. It's really just to kind of get things started. So if you can do it earlier, that would be fantastic. Okay. Next slide.
Yeah,
please.
and I just want to follow up with all of this, and just a reminder of, if you have an idea now, TA is available, so you're more than welcome to fill those forms out, reach out to us. And also TA providers in respect to tribal governments, we can help with some of those waivers or some of those, tribal sovereignty issues, and just working through those and making sure this program can work for you in your community in respect to tribal sovereignty and all of those things. So, we are here, the services are available, the money's there. So let us help you. Thank you, Josh.
Yeah, thanks for adding that. We understand this program is not a one-size-fits-all, and particularly when we're talking about issues with tribal governance, culture, history, and so there is a lot of flexibility built in to look at certain things on a case-by-case basis. So, quick overview of the timeline. You've seen a lot of timelines. Here's one that's a little bit shorter. For TA, we are looking to start. Oh, back up real quick, if you can. Previous slide. Excellent, thank you. We're looking to get things kicked off in April, particularly for implementation grants. And as you've heard, pre-proposal, if you're doing implementation grants, due May 1st, full application August 1st, awards announced December 14th. So those are the real big, big milestones to keep in mind. Okay, next slide, thanks. Great, and a little bit more about the technical assistance team itself. So we have our lead providers, which is Estelano Advisors, Arup, and CivicWell. We all have overlapping knowledge and expertise. We've been involved with the TCC program since its origins, so have a pretty good feel for where things have been and where they're going. Arup is particularly helpful on detailed infrastructure type questions, and Estelano, as a generalist, is skilled in all areas, but also can help with the workforce development piece, and particularly they have a lot of subject matter expertise there. CivicWell, the organization I'm with, is definitely on community engagement, and we have had the opportunity and the privilege to be able to work with a lot of tribal communities. We have also California Rural Housing Coalition, also very skilled, particularly around housing, but other issues as well, and working with tribes. And we have other subject matters, which I won't go through, expertise down below that we can reach into as we work with you, depending on what kind of projects and issues you're working on. So, next slide, please. So the process is pretty straightforward. Really, again, please fill out the application initiation form. Then you'll be contacted fairly quickly, within a few days, to schedule a quick intake call, usually about 20 or 30 minutes. And that's really just getting to know you, checking in, understanding, confirming what your interests are and what your needs are. And then the third step is the TA team will work internally to match up who's the best match to be the lead, even though you have that whole bench that we mentioned as sources for expertise. Okay, next slide, please. Okay. After that, then your lead TA provider, which will then contact you and set up a kickoff meeting. And that's where we'll go through the proposal requirements, timeline, and TA priorities. Definitely get a sense from you where do you think you need the most help, so we can start lining up resources, how to move questions between us and other agencies and Strategic Growth Council that may arise. And I'll talk about the local TA provider opportunity in a minute. And once we're on board, we'll support you through to the deadline, application deadline. So, lots of ways we can help. And this is really just, it's a partial list, but for implementation grant applicants, we do have an expert on board who will help with the GHG quantification piece. They understand the methodologies. They'll get information from you and help guide you ways to maximize GHGs. Lots of times guidelines clarification comes up, things come up along the way you need help with. We want to help you with project readiness, budget questions, representing maybe how your projects in terms of budgets and how you want to break them down so that they're clear and they work for you, and also the reviewers can understand. Transformative elements, mapping assistance, and partnership engagement. Next slide. To help assist with this, we will, once we get to kickoff, we'll send you a work plan template. This is totally modifiable, but it's really just to help you complete what you're thinking about your timing and how you're organizing internally and what you're hoping from us. And that way we can all be working together and plotting out, task management from beginning to application submittal. I did mention for implementation grant applicants, the GHG emission reduction quantification. So we've got lots of support for that, and our expert community development resource group is our team member, will provide an intake form. You fill it out. It's pretty straightforward, and then they'll take a look at it and quantify the numbers and then give feedback to you. And part of the TA assistance could be, hey, have you thought about maybe slightly modifying what you're looking for in your implementation grant? There's an opportunity for you to gain more GHG benefits. So there'll be some chance to do modifications to your project along the way. Okay, so a little bit about the local TA provider opportunity. So Strategic Growth Council has a pool of funds, and that's to allow allow applicants who would like to have some dollars to support expenses and staff time for a local TA provider in helping develop the project or aspects of the project and the actual application. Next slide. So the criteria for that would be need to be a nonprofit. We'd expect common sense would dictate that it would have some project area expertise, or knowledge and familiarity with the project, and definitely experience as working with the community, and that would be, that kind of goes without saying. But most importantly, if they do receive funds to do some of this work, they would not be able to actually apply to receive grant funds. So it wouldn't necessarily be paying somebody to write the proposal and then get money if it goes through. So that's the one requirement to be aware of. Okay, next slide. So if interested, again, recommend a potential TA provider, and then SGC and our TA assistance team will work with you on approving that provider, subject to funding availability. And the dollar amounts are not totally determined yet, but there is a pool, and we're talking, several $1,000s. That just to give you kind of an order of magnitude. But that exact amount has not been finalized yet. But we have found on occasion some applicants would like to bring on a nonprofit to help maybe with a particular aspect of developing the project. So that's just something to be aware of. And with that, TA contact information, both myself and Kayla from our office will be leads working with tribal communities in partnership with California Coalition for Rural Housing. So you can contact us by email, and certainly just go to the website, SGC website. You can, for Transformative Climate Communities, you can navigate in and get more information about the TA resources, and as well as the access to the application form for requesting technical assistance. So I think with that, I'll wrap up and hang on for the next steps in this webinar. Thank you all.
Great. Thanks, Josh. Thank you, Clancy. Appreciate that. Great. So now in the last 35 minutes or so, we'd like to take a moment to highlight, as we mentioned, our most recent awardees, including the Chicken Ranch Rancheria, Karuk tribe, and then I think we have someone from the Native American Environmental Protection Coalition on board. So we have a couple of slides set up. We'll start with Chicken Ranch Rancheria, and we have Joanna on the line, who we're inviting to open up your mic, Joanna, and join us. So next slide. There we go.
Hi, do you hear me okay?
We can hear you well. Thank
Great.
you.
Okay. Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Joanna Portillo Shu, and I'm the Environmental and Planning Manager for Chicken Ranch. I'm not a member of the tribe, just to clarify. And we applied for the TCC planning grant on behalf of the tribe for our transformative community planning for health and safety that included tribal lands in Jamestown, which is where the tribe is located. and we were awarded 217,000. And so it was inspired by this path that regional plans proposing to connect all the communities in Tuolumne County, 3 of them, Columbia, Sonora, and Jamestown, with like a 14-mile walking and biking path. And the agency that was leading that effort presented to tribal council about it, and the council really wanted that path to extend to tribal land so that it also was included, and it didn't just stop in Jamestown. And so that's what inspired the tribe looking into this grant. And really, it was reaching out to the county, the city, public agencies saying, why don't we go for this implementation grant? And then in the process of learning about the requirements for the implementation grant, and sitting on webinars like this, it was clear that going for a planning grant was probably the first best step to do first. And then it would create capacity to apply for these larger implementation grants. So that was the inspiration around this. And it's centered around, so planning activities are centered around reducing greenhouse gas emissions, improving public health and environmental benefits. And for context, Jamestown and tribal lands, there's not a lot of safe walking paths. There's one highway, the 1-8, which you can see in black. And there's been a lot of fatalities with drivers and pedestrians. And so this has been an issue that the tribe is concerned with, Jamestown is concerned with, and Jamestown historically has always kind of been a poorer community within Tuolumne County. So it just seemed fitting that the tribe in Jamestown would be the focus of this planning grant, and the county is super supportive of it as well. And our planning grant area is quite small. It's only about 4 miles. And you can see here the red below is tribal lands. And then the rest is unincorporated Tuolumne County, which includes Jamestown.
Thanks, Joanna. Thanks, Joanna, so much.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Go.
Sorry.
I didn't mean to interrupt. Sorry.
No, and just some quick things that I learned along the way, and the tribe learned along the way. Having partnerships with other community agencies really strengthens your application. We partnered with the city of Sonora, Tuolumne County government, Blue Zones project, which is part of Adventist Health. It's like community outreach to improve health, quality of life in Tuolumne County. And then the Tuolumne County Transit TCC, Tuolumne County Transit Planning. And it was through that partnership that we started that conversation pretty early on. It was at the beginning. And we decided that the actual co-applicants would be the TCTC, which is our public agency, and Blue Zones, and the tribe was the lead applicant. Power of an MOU, you want to get that started also, knowing how approval processes are for county public agencies. You want to get that drafted and have everybody look over it, and make sure all required bodies like tribal council, they all approve of the language and what the message is saying. And I think probably the most helpful, and this came from the technical assistance that we had, was at first our planning grant was really trying to get this path in place. And I think about midway or closer to the end, it was recommended that we more exploratory, and that it's really about like a planning grant to see what the community wants to do. And so, and I thought that was probably the most useful advice, was that the planning grant changed entirely. It changed to be really let whatever comes from the community, let that be what dictates what happens afterwards. So that's been that was a huge help.
Awesome. Joanna, thank you so much for that insight. Yeah, great presentation and feedback based on your experience. And yes, community driven, community driven, community driven. Take that and move forward with your proposed project. Thank you so much. Next, we'll move to NA EPC. I think we have Sarah and Jill on the line. Y'all are welcome to open up your mic. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And yeah, feel free to share anything you have from your experience in this past round.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Jill Sherman Warren, and I am the Executive Director of the Native American Environmental Protection Coalition. And I am also I also serve on the Tribal Council for the Hoopa Tribe. So kind of a little different perspective. We had initiated this project as it's a planning grant. And I am the tribe is a co-applicant with the Native American Environmental Protection Coalition, of which that they're a member. And I am also, we also are working with EFC West, which is Environmental Finance Center West, and that is Sarah. And we are looking at doing a climate vulnerability and adaptation planning process. And we hope that the outcomes will basically be that the community will help develop the blueprints for the adaptive measures that we are engaged with. So this is a community-wide process, including tribal members, because we have both tribal members and non-tribal members who live on the reservation. And we have a really strong history of engaging our whole community. For example, our forestry program has a forest management plan, and that forest management plan was developed with the input of tribal members for some of the rules that we put in place. And we have a radio station, and so we broadcast our meetings, and we broadcast issues that the tribes is working on through the radio station as well. And the process was pretty easy. Both Sarah and I have very extensive backgrounds in grant writing. So this was probably one of the easiest grant writing opportunities that's out there. The whole team is extremely helpful because there's always small things that we don't understand. We don't know exactly if this is okay. The other thing that is really unique about this program is that we actually asked them, because we were a little, we had a question about how we answered some of the responded, and we asked them to do a quick look-see to make sure that we had everything in alignment the day that the application was due, and they were able to do that. And that, I don't know if that's unusual. I know it's extremely unusual, and I've never heard of that ever being offered. So the fact that they offer to go through your grant application just to make sure everything is met is a real benefit. And I think this really makes this application super easy for any tribe who you don't have to hire a grant writer to do it. It's basically answering the questions and moving forward, and their whole team will help you in that process. So I really do believe that the intention of this this program is to fund tribal tribes, and that you don't have to have this crazy expertise to do it. So the only thing that I had, and I was trying to find the map, I just had the map here in front of me, and I wanted to show you, we did have some, I guess, clarifications later on that came up as I don't know if I can share my screen or not. Is that possible?
Yeah, I can stop sharing, and you should have the ability to.
Okay, let's see here. What's it doing here? Where is it? Hang on, it's hiding from me. Oh, is it because I'm on the other screen? Hang on. All right. I think I have it. So one of the issues that we had was that the map that I used was initially was this ancestral map. And actually, I don't believe we replaced it. So you can see up here that I put in there the ancestral lands, and then we have the reservation boundary. And it just became really confusing. We ended up going back and forth with the team several times about what this map was. And I don't, and that's my bad, because I assume that people know how to read maps. And so the grant writers may not be familiar with maps in and of themselves. And I don't know if the woman who spoke previously, if they had questions, but I think we had to respond 3 different times to the question about where this project was taking place, even though we said each time it was the Hoopa Valley Tribal Reservation. And obviously up here, I think you can see me moving my little guy around. It says reservation boundary, and then, has the icon, or shows you what that's supposed to look like, which means that this square, right? So I guess and in this square, what I didn't realize was there's these little tiny kind of islands up at the top here. And that really just made it confusing for them. Not only did the ancestral lands portion make it confusing, but then these little squares outside the area, and I didn't realize that they were there. So when I'm looking at the map, I know that we're a 12-mile by 12-mile square. So we're the largest reservation in California. And so I think when you do the map, just make it as simple as possible. Don't, that whoever's looking at the grant, maybe they don't understand that this is the this is the key to reading a map. We just assume people know how to read maps. So I would just say, make it black and white. I mean, I don't know what Jerry or Jess has to say about that, but it just became this, I wanted to hit my head against the wall. Like, how can they not read that this is when we're talking about the reservation, we're talking about this square. And so I think it was Sarah, it was 3 different times we had to respond to the question because they didn't understand where the project was taking place. So, just do your boundaries, don't make it too complicated. That's my suggestion with that map. And again, they are very helpful. I mean, I guess it's your grant writing, your third party is the one who does all of that, right, Jerry? The third party people are the ones who are super helpful, but even they don't know what the mindset of the TCC people themselves is. So you have to keep in mind that the subcontractor may get it, but then when it goes to TCC, it goes through its own process there. So not anything, it can be just a smidge frustrating in something that I think it was very simple, but that was the approach. And I don't know if Sarah has anything to add.
You covered it really well, Jill. The only thing I might add is that if you do win, be prepared for post-award questions and probably the need to embellish what you said in your proposal. And it takes a while for sort of all of that to play out and for the award to be awarded. I think it's taken about, I don't know, 3 months or so, Jill, and we're still sort of in that space of not knowing quite when the award will start. So just be prepared for that as well.
Right, because this is a new program. So they should have the kinks worked out by the time you guys come along. So I think we're like, are we a part of the first round?
Yes,
So
you were.
they're still working on the grant agreement and stuff. So hopefully by the time that you guys come along, that'll be good. And going through the questions that they had afterwards was actually fairly simple. We were able to answer the questions that they had. And it also helped us to further define the project parameters as well, or clarify. The other thing that I want to say is when we had the discussion, and I forgot, I actually owe them an explanation. I brought up the, providing a honorarium or providing gifts when we're taking of people's time. And if most of you are tribes, you understand that there are cultural and traditional norms at play that the state agency may not understand in terms of providing a gift to show a gift is really the wrong word. It's more of an honoring that traditionally we as tribes, when somebody gives of their time and, we have this give and take in the process. Well, the colonized view of people providing input is that we just take. We're going to take your input, we're going to use your input, but there's none of this reciprocity. And traditionally, it's very important to provide reciprocity when we are in those situations. And because that goes with our traditional values of generosity and humility and honoring the other person. So providing and I'm just going to call them gifts because I don't know how to really phrase it, because it doesn't really articulate well in a European mindset. But when we are asking for the community to provide input, it's demanded in cultural terms to provide some reciprocity in that process. So I don't just take from you. I don't just take your information. I don't just take, which again is kind of a Western mindset. I have to be respectful and give something back for the gift that you have given me. So it's like an exchange of gifts, I guess you could say. You're gifting me with your knowledge, and I need to show reciprocity and generosity and respect by giving back to you. And those kind of elements are hard to describe.
Thank you, Jill. Appreciate that. Appreciate all this. This is good. I think this is helpful to folks, also to the team, right? As you mentioned, this is our first exploration and expansion of the program. So we learned a lot alongside you all, and always looking for ways to improve the program. So something that falls within our sphere as well as we're internalizing this program is, as you mentioned, ways to decolonize some of this work, if not all of it, to be able to understand the cultural norms in some spaces outside of status quo. So thank you very much for that. Just noting also, right, that the program does provide stipends and compensation for engagement, but just finding ways of how that fits into spaces in tribal communities and tribal spaces is also an important component of where we strive to learn. And also there's this flexibility of the program, right, where we're learning from each other. So thank you very much for that.
Yes.
Sweet. We have 15 minutes or so to go. We have one more presenter on the line, and we'll also be doing a screen share. Tanya Garcia, who is from the representing the Karuk tribe application folks. So Tanya, we will hand the keys over to you if you're ready for it to screen share.
Awesome, thank you. Yes.
And then just
quick,
noting that we'll also try to do a question and answer session. So you got 15 minutes or so, maybe less to do the presentation. But
okay,
yeah, cool. Thanks.
I will quickly run through. Hi, my name is Tanya Garcia. I'm a research engineer and lecturer at the Shots Energy Research Center, which is located at Cal Poly Humboldt. I am not a tribal member to the Creek tribe. I am a partner to the Creek Department of Natural Resources. I am indigenous to somewhere in Central America, but is not to this America. We have been working with the Creek tribe for the last 3 or 4 years in collaborations. And so I'll talk more about that later. The name of our project is Panamik Sakriv Nukiavish. And sorry, I tried to practice saying that. It essentially comes out to Orleans, we're making it strong. And so this is a partnership between the Creek Department of Natural Resources and the Shots Energy Research Center. And this is a picture of Orleans, which is a beautiful community located in the valley, north of the Hoopa tribe, actually. So just a little background about the Orleans and about the Creek tribe. Orleans is an unincorporated community located within the ancestral territory of the Creek tribe, and it is along the Klamath River in Northern California. It is located at the end of the line of electricity lines and is also impacted severely by wildfires, power outages, and other extreme weather events. So here in this picture on the left, this yellow circle that hopefully you can see my cursor, that's actually Hoopa, the Hoopa reservation and tribe, and they have the last circuit essentially. And after that, there's a bit of distribution lines that go up here to Orleans. But after that, there's a big stretch where there is no electricity. And so there are a lot of implications about being at the end of the line. From 2014 to 2018, the customers in Orleans experienced 4 times more outages than other PG&E customers. So that is really like signifying the need and the impact that being in this location is and how they are underserved by the utility. Additionally, when there are wildfires, this is the image taken by one of our researchers just during a typical day in the summertime during wildfires. You can see that the PM 2.5 levels are in the like hazardous levels. They're above 400. And so that is really what centered our need and our research. And so we applied for a planning grant in collaboration. And to do that, we have already had a bunch of past research and work together. And the community has done so much already to identify the needs that they have. And so it wasn't that difficult for us to have a collaboration and apply for this. But this is essentially like the background and saying the needs and some of the challenges of what is going on with this community. So what we're focused on are like the goals of this grant. We want to work with community to prioritize the needs through workshops and focus groups. And so I have a picture here at the top. This is the focus group we've already done. We've been funded by the Strategic Growth Council for a previous project called Safe Smoke, Air, Fire, Energy. And so we've been in collaboration with them and the Blue Lake Rancheria tribe to do different community engagement as well as research. So we're planning to have workshops and focus groups, and we want to prioritize affordable housing, electrification, food security, increased access to parks, and overall climate and energy resiliency. And as Jill mentioned, and Jerry, you too, like, you know, there's like, you're taking up people's times and people have to drive maybe an hour or two and they're leaving work. There's all this energy folks are taking into being a part of this. So part of our plan is to incentivize folks to provide gift cards for their time when they're coming to these focus groups and conversations. We also hope to do some land acquisition and permitting for new infrastructure, including housing. Like some context here is that this is where the gold rush was happening, right? So a lot of land has been like blasted through and now there's no topsoil. It's not adequate to put housing. So there's land, but now you can't put septic tanks in. So there is definitely like a lack of access to affordable housing in these communities. And also there is weed growers that come or people that do Airbnbs. And so they're also taking up housing in these areas that there's a need for affordable housing. Also mentioning the electrification issues, you know, like the issues that folks in this community have with the power going down all the time because of the way utility is managing the lines. There's a big need for increasing food security. If your power goes out for 10 days, how do you have refrigeration? You know, and so we're working on with other grants also to try to build microgrids in these communities, where we're in partnership with folks. And so those are things that are happening in parallel. We also are planning on then having a fiscal and climate analysis, developing business plans, and identifying match funding for more opportunities. We'll then report back to the community, and we're hoping to apply to the TCC implementation grant after that. And so some of the lessons learned through this process, one is that being in a rural community, you're going to have to prove that you need things, which can be frustrating. One example here is an air quality, right? So when you're using Cal Screen, they're going to be accessing reference grade monitors, which cost $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. And the map I was showing in the previous slide, like these are all purple air sensors, which are low cost sensors in the communities. And so although this map shows that the air quality is severely bad and that the community is being impacted, if Cal Screen might say that the air quality is fine because the closest reference grade monitor is on the coast. And so something that was a bit frustrating and challenging, but we just had to get it done, was prove this need, like prove that there's bad air quality, prove that there's the socioeconomic status, prove the population. And so we did things like that by mentioning how many enrolled Karuk tribal members there were and how many descendants there were and those types of things. But that's something that we learned we had to do, which took more time, right? It was just like supplemental materials to provide. But that's something that we learned in this. And essentially, when you're in a rural community, there's a lack of data. And so those things happen. Next was that the technical assistance with CivicWell was extremely helpful and should be continued. We ourselves at the Shots Energy Research Center have expertise in electricity. You know, we do solar, we do air quality things, but having CivicWell there to actually be the ones to help us with the actual application and review materials, make sure we had the checklist and everything going was very helpful. And then third, authentic engagement with the community needs to be sustained. So I mentioned that the Shots Energy Research Center has already had past projects with the Karuk tribe. And so since the fact that we've been collaborating made this an easier application to complete, but we're not sure what the success would be if we had just met each other and decided to do this application. And so we're not sure how successful we would have been. And so it's important to have those existing relationships. And I think someone mentioned layers of support. I think having layers of support from community organizations was also helpful. We had like 7 or 8 or 10, but we had a high number of them. And typo here, but it takes time. It takes a while to get the award. And so when we were planning this, we were thinking, oh, this will do this, and then we'll get match funding here, and we'll do all these things. But like the timeline is not like, oh, we thought we'd have this in October, and now it's March type of thing. And so being aware of it takes time to do these things and being conscientious of that. And I guess sneaking in some requests, requesting that the requirements are more streamlined, and also when possible, trust communities when they express a need, since there is often a lack of data for communities that are not San Francisco. There's lack of data from places that are not metropolitan, that are rural communities. Yeah, thanks. I was trying to rush this through so I can pass it over to y'all. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya, so much. Hearing that feedback also, we're also working on streamlining this next round. We're hoping that we streamline the application process a little bit more, and also including the requirement for local data that we have there to be more flexible, and for folks to be able to provide this local data in different forms and fashions that should be more flexible this time around. So thanks again so much. I said in the chat we had questions. There are about 6 minutes left. Our staff will stick around certainly a little bit beyond if you have questions directly for us. We're thinking of doing breakout rooms. We'll keep it here general just because of time. Also, I'd encourage folks to ask Tanya. I don't know if Jill and others are still on the line. Joanna, if y'all are still on the line, to take questions from folks directly. I see that Todd has their hand up, so we can start questions now. Todd, you have the mic.
Great, thanks. Great presentation. I actually have two questions. One of them is applying for technical assistance. I know July 3rd is the deadline. However, say for example, our partnership applies tomorrow. How soon will we get a TA assigned to us, and how soon can that TA start working with us?
Is Josh here? Is Josh still here?
Yeah, I'm here. We can start whenever you're ready.
Great.
I mean, just
okay.
fill out the initiation form. We'll
Yep.
follow up pretty fast with you. You can get working on the application. You can't be submitting applications yet, right? Because the window hasn't
No,
opened.
no, and
But
so
you
here-
could definitely get underway and start
Yeah.
getting help.
So here's the slippery question. Of all the TAs, I know that obviously the partnership will apply and do all the legwork on it. However, when the application is put together, are the TAs disqualified for actually doing the implemented work or the planning work or the study work?
If it's a local TA provider that received money from SGC to provide that support, they would be disqualified.
Okay, just wanted
But
to-
otherwise, I don't see any restriction. But and if we're one of the SGC TA providers, we wouldn't be able to be part of it. So if there's somebody on the team that you were talking with, they can provide assistance through SGC, but can't be part of the application.
That's the reason why I called it slippery. I just want to make sure I'm clear on that. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Awesome. Thanks for that question, Todd. Any other questions? I saw some in the chat. I think we got to most of them. We will be making the chat available, right, Jess, as part of the resources? The
We
questions that
will
came
be
in the
sending
chat?
around a summary sheet of frequently asked questions.
Awesome. Thanks for that. Yeah, super excited as questions come up here to hear from past applicants. This was very, very helpful even for us to hear it. So thank you very much for being here and presenting on this and for providing your experiences.
Awesome, thank you. So yes, we will be sticking around a little bit longer until folks trickle out or questions trickle down. Last note is, yes, make sure you fill out the application initiation form. It is required for all applicants, and once again, it is not a commitment to apply. And then secondly, we do have TCC office hours every Tuesday, 2 to 4 p.m. and I sent some information in the chat about that. So thank you all so much for sharing the space with us, and yes. Hopefully you all gain some clarity.
Thank you, Joanna. Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you. Have a good day, everybody.
Jill.